The California Gold Rush stands as a pivotal moment in American history, a cataclysmic event that reshaped the nation's identity, ignited unprecedented mass migration, and forever altered the trajectory of the West. As we delve into this six-part series, we'll explore the intricate tapestry of characters from James W. Foca, Marshall's fateful discovery at Sutter's Mill, to the countless 49ers who risked everything in pursuit of gold, and examine the profound social, economic, and environmental transformations that ensued. Join me on a journey through the dusty mining camps, bustling boomtowns, and rugged landscapes of 19th-century California as we uncover the fascinating story of how the gold rush forged a new America and discover why its legacy continues to echo through the ages. As the Mexican-American War drew to a close in 1848, California lay poised on the cusp of transformation, its vast territories and untapped resources waiting to be shaped by the forces of history. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed in February of that year, had formally ended the conflict, ceding a vast expanse of land, including present-day California, to the United States. It was against this backdrop of uncertainty and possibility that James W. Marshall, a carpenter and sawmill operator, made his way to the American River, where he had been tasked by Swiss-born businessman John Sutter with constructing a new sawmill. Sutter, who had established himself as a prominent figure in California's early development, had grand ambitions for his empire, which included a vast network of agricultural enterprises, trade routes, and commercial ventures. His domain, known as Sutter's Fort, stood as a testament to his entrepreneurial spirit, a bustling hub of activity that drew people from all corners of the region. Yet, unbeknownst to Sutter, his carefully constructed world was on the verge of collapse, as the very events that would soon propel California to unprecedented heights would also spell the demise of his own fortunes. It was on January 24, 1848, that Marshall stumbled upon something that would change the course of history. While inspecting the sawmill's tail race, he spotted glints of gold in the water, a discovery that would set off a chain reaction of events whose repercussions would be felt for generations to come. Initially, news of the find was met with a mix of skepticism and excitement, as Marshall and Sutter attempted to keep the discovery quiet, fearing that it might disrupt their operations and attract unwanted attention. However, secrecy proved impossible to maintain, as rumors of gold began to spread like wildfire through the small communities dotted along the American River. Local residents, including indigenous peoples, Mexicans, and Americans, started to trickle into the area, eager to catch a glimpse of the elusive metal for themselves. These early mining efforts were marked by a sense of improvisation and experimentation, as people from all walks of life attempted to extract gold using makeshift equipment and untested techniques. As the weeks passed, the trickle of prospectors turned into a steady stream, and Sutter's attempts to maintain control over his domain began to fray. His workers, enticed by the promise of easy wealth, started to abandon their posts, leaving his enterprises to falter. The once mighty Sutter's Fort, which had stood as a beacon of prosperity and stability, now teetered on the brink of collapse, its owner powerless to stop the forces that were rapidly reshaping the world around him. As the news of gold spread, a deluge of prospectors from the eastern United States began to pour into California, marking the beginning of one of the most remarkable mass migrations in American history. The year 1849 would become synonymous with the 49ers, a term that would come to define the thousands of adventurers who flocked to the Golden State in search of riches. These migrants traveled along the Overland Trail, a grueling 2,000-mile journey that spanned from Missouri to California, braving treacherous terrain, disease, and hunger as they pushed westward. However, the 49ers were not the only ones drawn to California's promise of gold. Latin Americans, particularly from Mexico and Chile, also began to arrive in large numbers, bringing with them their own unique cultural traditions and mining expertise. European immigrants, including Germans, French, and Italians, soon followed, as did Chinese prospectors, who would eventually become one of the largest and most influential groups in the California goldfields. The town of San Francisco, once a sleepy Mexican outpost, was transformed overnight into a bustling metropolis, with people from all corners of the globe converging on its streets. The maritime route, which spanned from the East Coast to California via the Panama Canal or around Cape Horn, also brought thousands of prospectors to the Golden State. This journey, though shorter than the overland trail, was no less arduous, with passengers facing disease, rough seas, and cramped quarters as they traveled across the ocean. Upon arrival, these migrants would often disembark in San Francisco or other coastal towns before making their way to the goldfields via horseback or on foot. As the population of California swelled, boomtowns began to spring up across the state, each one a testament to the frenzy and excitement of the gold rush era. Towns like Sacramento, Amador City, and Jackson became overnight sensations, with makeshift tents and shanties giving way to more permanent structures as the months passed. The demographic upheaval was staggering, with men outnumbering women by a ratio of at least 10 to 1, and people from diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds living and working together in close proximity. California's sudden population explosion had a profound impact on the state's infrastructure and social fabric. The once sleepy towns were now teeming with people, all of whom required food, shelter, and other essential services. Prices skyrocketed as merchants and traders sought to capitalize on the demand for goods and supplies. The state's economy was transformed overnight, with gold becoming the primary driver of growth and development. In the midst of this chaos, the California state legislature struggled to maintain order and establish a functioning government. The lack of infrastructure, combined with the sheer scale of the migration, made it difficult for authorities to provide even basic services like law enforcement and public health. As a result, many towns were left to govern themselves, with vigilance committees and other forms of makeshift justice becoming commonplace. As the California state legislature struggled to maintain order, life in the mining camps continued to evolve, with placer mining techniques and tools becoming more refined. By 1850, prospectors had developed a range of methods to extract gold from the state's rivers and streams, including panning, cradling, and sluice boxing. The most successful miners were those who could adapt quickly to changing conditions, such as the arrival of winter rains, which would often alter the course of waterways and uncover new deposits of gold. A typical day in a mining camp began before dawn, with men rising from their makeshift tents or cabins to start a fire and prepare breakfast. Meals were often simple, consisting of beans, bacon, and bread, washed down with coffee or tea. As the sun rose, miners would head out to their claims, armed with pickaxes, shovels, and pans, to begin the back-breaking work of extracting gold from the earth. The sound of pickaxes striking gravel and the rush of water through sluice boxes filled the air, as men worked tirelessly to strike it rich. Despite the promise of sudden wealth, life in the diggings was harsh and unforgiving. Food was often scarce and expensive, with a pound of flour costing upwards of a staggering sum for the time. Shelter was also a luxury, with many miners forced to live in cramped and unsanitary conditions, making them vulnerable to disease. Cholera, dysentery, and other waterborne illnesses were rampant, claiming countless lives and leaving many more debilitated. The lack of proper medical care and the isolation of the mining camps made it difficult for miners to receive adequate treatment, and many were forced to rely on makeshift remedies or simply endure their suffering. As the months passed, the mining camps became increasingly mobile, with men moving from one location to another in search of new deposits of gold. This nomadic lifestyle was driven by the pursuit of sudden wealth, as miners sought to stake their claim on the latest discovery. The arrival of news about a new strike would send waves of excitement through the camps, prompting men to pack up their belongings and head out to the latest hotspot. This constant mobility made it difficult for authorities to maintain order, as miners were often more focused on finding gold than adhering to rules and regulations. In the midst of this chaos, a unique social hierarchy emerged, with successful miners and merchants accumulating wealth and influence. These individuals would often invest in larger-scale mining operations, hiring crews of workers to extract gold from their claims. The division between laborers and capitalists became more pronounced, as those who had struck it rich began to live lives of relative luxury, while others struggled to make ends meet. Despite these disparities, the sense of community and camaraderie that existed among miners helped to mitigate some of the harsher aspects of life in the diggings. As the mining camps continued to thrive, boomtowns sprouted up to cater to the needs of the miners. These towns, such as Sacramento and San Francisco, became hubs for informal economies, with gambling, alcohol, and prostitution becoming lucrative industries. Saloons and gaming halls proliferated, offering a range of vices to miners looking to spend their hard-earned gold dust. The most notorious of these establishments was the El Dorado Saloon in San Francisco, which boasted an elaborate bar, a theater, and even a bowling alley. Patrons could indulge in whiskey, faro, and other games of chance, all while being entertained by musicians, dancers, and other performers. The gender imbalance in the mining camps had a profound impact on the social dynamics of these boomtowns. With men outnumbering women by as much as 10 to 1, women who did venture into these towns found themselves in high demand. Some women, like Mary Ellen Pleasant, capitalized on this shortage by opening boarding houses and restaurants, catering to the needs of miners and amassing small fortunes in the process. Others, however, were forced into more precarious situations such as prostitution or concubinage. Despite these challenges, women like Louise Clapp, who wrote under the pseudonym Dame Shirley, used their experiences in the mining camps to pen vivid accounts of life in the diggings, offering a unique perspective on this tumultuous era. As the population of these boomtowns swelled, the need for social order became increasingly pressing. With the formal justice system struggling to keep pace with the rapid growth of the region, vigilante justice and miners' courts began to fill the void. These extra-legal institutions, composed of respected community leaders and miners, aimed to maintain order and punish wrongdoing in the absence of formal authority. In 1851, a group of prominent citizens in San Francisco formed the Committee of Vigilance, which set out to curb crime and corruption in the city. This committee, composed of merchants, lawyers, and other respected individuals, worked tirelessly to identify and prosecute wrongdoers, often using unconventional methods to achieve their goals. Crime and punishment became a major concern in these boomtowns, with theft, robbery, and violence becoming commonplace. Miners' courts, which had initially been established to settle disputes over mining claims, began to take on a more formal role, meting out punishments ranging from fines to floggings. In 1852, a group of miners in the town of Amador City formed a court to try a man accused of stealing a horse. The court, composed of local residents, found the defendant guilty and sentenced him to 20 lashes and a fine of $100. This brand of rough justice was not uncommon, with many towns relying on such courts to maintain order in the absence of formal authority. The environmental strain on rivers and settlements also began to manifest during this period. The rapid growth of mining operations led to deforestation, soil erosion, and water pollution as mercury and other toxins used in the extraction process contaminated local waterways. In 1852, a group of miners in the town of Jackson discovered that the local creek was running thick with mercury, prompting concerns about the safety of the town's water supply. This incident sparked a heated debate about the environmental impact of mining, with some arguing that the economic benefits outweighed the costs, while others advocated for more sustainable practices. As California entered its early years as a U.S. state, the debates over slavery and free labor continued to simmer. In 1853, the state legislature passed a law prohibiting the introduction of new slaves into the state, but it did not emancipate those already held in bondage. This compromise reflected the delicate balance between pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions in the state. Meanwhile, the issue of free labor became increasingly contentious, with many Californians advocating for the exclusion of Chinese and other foreign workers from the state's mines and industries. The foreign miners' tax, first introduced in 1850, became a focal point of anti-immigrant sentiment in California. The tax, which imposed a monthly fee on foreign miners, was seen as a way to discourage immigration and protect the interests of American-born citizens. However, it also sparked resentment among foreign miners, who felt that they were being unfairly targeted. In 1853, a group of Chinese miners in Amador County refused to pay the tax, citing their right to equal treatment under the law. The incident sparked a heated debate about the rights of foreign workers and the role of the state in regulating immigration. As the debate over slavery and free labor continued, a new player emerged on the California scene, the Know Nothing Party. This anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic party gained significant traction in the state, particularly among working-class Americans who felt threatened by the influx of foreign workers. In 1854, the Know Nothings won several key elections in California, including the mayor's seat in San Francisco. Their platform, which called for the exclusion of foreigners and the protection of American jobs, resonated with many Californians who felt that the state was being overrun by outsiders. The consolidation of political and economic power in California during this period was largely driven by a small group of wealthy and influential men. These individuals, including Leland Stanford and Mark Hopkins, used their wealth and connections to shape the state's policies and institutions. In 1854, Stanford, who would later become governor of California, founded the Republican Party in the state, which quickly became a powerful force in California politics. Meanwhile, Hopkins and his partners, who controlled the Central Pacific Railroad, began to exert significant influence over the state's transportation and commerce. The racial tensions that had been simmering in California for years finally boiled over in 1856 when a group of white miners attacked a village of Native Americans in Calaveras County. The incident, which became known as the Calaveras Massacre, sparked a wave of violence against Native Americans throughout the state. In response, the state legislature passed a series of laws aimed at regulating the interactions between whites and Native Americans, including a law that prohibited Native Americans from testifying in court against whites. As the Calaveras Massacre and subsequent violence against Native Americans subsided, a new era of mining emerged in California, marked by the rise of hydraulic and industrial mining. The introduction of hydraulic mining, which involved using high-pressure water jets to wash away entire hillsides, revolutionized the industry and transformed the landscape of the West. Companies like the North Bloomfield Gravel Mining Company, led by entrepreneurs like George Hearst, began to dominate the scene, employing hundreds of workers and extracting vast amounts of gold and other minerals from the earth. The decline of individual prospectors was a direct consequence of this shift towards industrial mining. As companies like Hearst's acquired large tracts of land and invested heavily in equipment and infrastructure, it became increasingly difficult for small-scale miners to compete. Many were forced to sell their claims or seek employment with the larger companies, marking the end of the era of independent prospecting that had characterized the early days of the gold rush. As corporate mining expanded, legal battles over land and water rights intensified. Companies like the North Bloomfield Gravel Mining Company clashed with farmers and other downstream users over issues like water pollution and sedimentation. In 1861, the California Supreme Court ruled in the case of Woodruff v. North Bloomfield Gravel Mining Company, establishing the principle that mining companies were liable for damages caused by their operations to downstream landowners. This decision set a precedent for future litigation and highlighted the complex and often contentious relationships between mining companies, farmers, and other stakeholders in the region. The long-term economic transformation of the West was also underway during this period. As mining companies extracted vast amounts of wealth from the earth, they invested heavily in infrastructure like roads, bridges, and railroads, which helped to facilitate the growth of other industries like agriculture and commerce. The completion of the first transcontinental railroad in 1869, which connected California to the rest of the country by rail, marked a major milestone in this process, enabling the rapid transportation of goods and people across the continent. As the mining industry continued to evolve, new technologies and techniques were developed to extract minerals from increasingly difficult-to-reach deposits. The introduction of the Bessemer steel process, which enabled the mass production of high-quality steel, led to the development of more efficient mining equipment, such as the steam shovel and the ore crusher. These innovations allowed companies to tap into deeper and more complex deposits, further consolidating their control over the industry. In 1872, the California legislature passed the Mining Debris Act, which aimed to regulate the environmental impacts of mining by requiring companies to mitigate the effects of their operations on downstream waterways. While the law was not always effectively enforced, it represented a growing recognition of the need for sustainable mining practices and marked an important step towards greater environmental awareness in the industry. As we conclude this epic tale of the California Gold Rush, we are reminded that the reverberations of this pivotal event in American history continue to shape our world today. The Gold Rush era's themes of opportunism, innovation, and environmental degradation remain eerily relevant, serving as a cautionary tale about the consequences of unchecked ambition and the importance of responsible stewardship. The mass migration of people from all corners of the globe, the clash of cultures, and the struggles for power and identity that defined this period have left an indelible mark on the modern American experience. The California Gold Rush was more than just a moment in time. It was a catalyst for the transformation of the United States into the global powerhouse it is today. The technological advancements, economic growth, and demographic shifts sparked by the Gold Rush set the stage for the country's rapid expansion and rise to prominence on the world stage. Moreover, the environmental and social challenges that arose during this period, such as the exploitation of Native American communities and the degradation of natural resources, serve as a stark reminder of the importance of balancing progress with sustainability and social responsibility. As we reflect on the California Gold Rush, we are compelled to consider the enduring lessons it offers for our own time. How can we harness the power of innovation and entrepreneurship while minimizing harm to the environment and vulnerable populations? How can we foster inclusive and equitable communities that celebrate diversity and promote social justice? These questions, which were at the heart of the Gold Rush era, remain pressing concerns in contemporary America. In the end, the California Gold Rush was a complex, multifaceted phenomenon that defies simplistic interpretation. It was an era of boundless optimism and unbridled greed, of visionary leadership and ruthless exploitation. Yet, it is precisely this complexity that makes the Gold Rush such a rich and rewarding topic for study and reflection. As we close this chapter on the California Gold Rush, we are reminded that history is not just a series of dusty relics or forgotten events. It is a living, breathing narrative that continues to shape our lives and inform our decisions. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. Until we meet again, I'm Herodotus, reminding you that history isn't just a story, it's our story. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.